So, welcome back to this next installment of Pocket Change. And this time we'll be looking at the Guiding Coalition. And we'll be looking at four different aspects of the Guiding Coalition and my experiences in that. And then we'll look at some really practical, not this time a practical tool, but actually some practical information about what you should be doing or not doing in your change. So first, the Guiding Coalition. In the Guiding Coalition, you want people that have approximately four different kinds of attributes. You want someone who has position power. You want someone who has expertise. You want someone who has leadership capabilities. And you want somebody who has credibility. Let's just walk through those. So, position power. If they're intergalactic vice president, that's a pretty hefty position power. These kinds of people are very often in the senior management team. That's a very good team to have in the Guiding Coalition. Sometimes people want to keep the Guiding Coalition outside the management team. This is just an excuse to step on toes, to run crossways across important agendas. So the people with the top position power, let's say you've got a company of 250 people and you've got a management team of 8, something like that. Those 8 people should probably be in the Guiding Coalition. The Guiding Coalition should, at a very minimum, report into that team. But those 8 people are probably good people to be in the Guiding Coalition. So it's going to put a little bit of extra effort on that management team, that executive team, but that's okay. What you don't want to do is get into a situation where you are just value signaling. So you need to have Bert, the night security guy, in there because, we need to include him and Susie, who is the head of office management or something. If it's relevant, absolutely, but don't put value signaling candidates into the Guiding Coalition. This will turn it pretty toxic pretty quickly and make these people not feel very good about being in there and can very well upset relationships. And that leads me to my second one. They should have position power, but they should also have some kind of expertise in the organization. Experts, they're so great to have in a Guiding Coalition. They're no nonsense, they're straightforward, but again, they can also be toxic. They're not, in many situations, used to talking to that intergalactic vice president. And so they come with their very lovely, no nonsense, this is how you got to do it, or you can just stop now, to someone who is much more sophisticated and sort of more the political, how can we get this thing done? How can we massage this thing forward? And that can be a very, very difficult situation to maneuver around, to handle within the Guiding Coalition. If you have someone who has position power and expertise, and the third one, leadership, wow, you have got some gold there. What do I mean by leadership? Someone who can articulate the vision, can articulate where we're going, can talk about the need, can show other people how this is part of the strategy, how it's meaningful for them. Someone who is very happy to walk around the shop floor, as it were, listen to what people have to say. Even those negative people, they're actually pretty nice to have these negative people around because they're pointing out the flaws that you may have missed. Someone who has that kind of leadership in the organization. And then the last one is related to that, and that is credibility. people who have really high credibility. So that techie might not be the very, very best techie, but it's the techie who people tend to listen to, who have a little bit broader experience throughout the organization. They're able to understand issues across functions, that kind of thing. Opinion leaders, these kinds of people. So ideally, they've got position power, so they're in charge of the budget. They know what to do. They've determined the dashboard for that department. These kinds of things. They've got a high level of expertise. Hopefully, they've got leadership qualities within the organization, and they have real credibility. And then some combination of that. So you've got somebody that has expertise and high credibility. Well, take them along. They may not be intergalactic vice president. They may not have the best leadership skills in the world, but that might be a good reason to take someone along. Someone else may have great leadership and position power. Not a lot of expertise, maybe hasn't built a lot of credibility in the organization, but that may be somebody else you want to take along. Which leads to the next issue, and that is, how big should this thing be? Well, John Cotter, he says pretty big, and he comes up with some stories about, people in very large companies that have, dozens of people in the guiding coalition. Well, I haven't really worked in the GEs of this world very much. I've just worked in companies that are sort of from 100 people up to, a couple of thousand. But I'd be tempted to go for more rather than for less. Yeah. And less feels good. Less is quick, and we don't spend a heck of a lot of time with very awkward people, usually the techies, very awkward people telling us, no, you can't do that. We need a Windows and a Linux environment, or, these kinds of things. And I'd resist the temptation to whittle it down and keep it small and efficient. And that's not what you really want in a change. So when we're kind of feeling our way through a dark room, as it were, and somebody may have moved the furniture a little bit, you want to take your time, and you want to be able to have enough feelers out there so that you can get through that dark room of change, if you will, without messing up all too badly. So larger is better. I give you an idea. I was in a company of about 250, 260 people. We had a management team of about 8, and we had a guiding coalition that was somewhere around 17. Now later, we sort of uninvited, and they were happy to be uninvited. We uninvited a couple of them because their expertise was not something we needed to use in every meeting. And so, the experts that come in, and are in all of the guiding coalition meetings should be ones where that you employ their expertise, or you need their input in each meeting, pretty much. So we started with 17. We went kind of big. We had the 2 owners. We had the management team. We had a number of people that had very high credibility and expertise. So that should give you an idea of how big the guiding coalition should be and might be for your organization's particular change. Now, one other point that I would take along in the guiding coalition is what John Cotter calls as killing hierarchy. I'm very much for hierarchy. It's a very human need, hierarchy is, but I think I know what he means. And where I have seen this go wrong is, for example, you've got the owner or the intergalactic vice president up here. You've got somebody who knows everything there is to know about databases or Windows or whatever the technical thing is, or logistics, something along those lines. And those two have a disagreement, and it becomes a dance of testosterone. very often, unless you have reduced the hierarchy. I've seen this where it goes quite well. They had brought me in as a consultant to, in a way, run this guiding coalition, to facilitate this guiding coalition. And there were some tensions, that the experts wanted to show how expert they were, and management wanted to show how in control they were. And it wasn't always the most easygoing. But with a policy of cool heads and warm hearts, and where we are all agreed on what the strategy is, what that dot on the horizon is, we are agreed in the kind of culture we have, the how do we want to get there and why these things are important. These things can resolve themselves with a little bit of effort and goodwill on all sides. So that's the guiding coalition. The guiding coalition is extremely important. You need to have people that have a position power, they have leadership, they have expertise, and they have credibility. Wouldn't it be nice to have all four of those? But usually a combination of at least two of those is good for someone in the guiding coalition. It should be kind of big. Don't limit it too much. In my example of 250 people in a company, maybe a guiding coalition of 25, 10% of the total might have been on the big side, but a guiding coalition of 5 probably doesn't have enough critical mass. And the last thing I'd like to say about this is it is less important that the guiding coalition is really behind the change and ready to go, because usually they are. They've been invited to do this. They're part of the change. They feel it. They live it. The really, really important people in this whole process are frontline managers. It's those people. That's where it really, really matters. So again, we're kind of coming back to, why do you need the characteristics that I talked about of position power, so you can get in, expertise, so that you can really talk to people, credibility, they're more likely to listen to you, and a real leadership, and knowing this is the giving direction and giving meaning to the whole change. And those are criteria that you not only use to build the guiding coalition so that thing works well together as a team, but also when you bring the message and help those frontline managers actually get to the change done. So that's it for now for the guiding coalition. Let's move on to our practical insight for this video. So there are a lot of assumptions about change. And here you see a list of 18 of the most common change assumptions. So we've got financial incentives are a good change lever. Well, that sounds about right. Employees' capabilities are an essential change lever. Well, that sounds pretty good. Change requires a powerful guiding coalition. Well, we just talked about that. That's got to be true. 70% of change initiatives fail, and so on. And what we've got here is a little bit of research that says, well, what are these are really, 70% really fail? Do we really always need to have a sense of urgency? What of these things, these assumptions about change that we all kind of repeat, but are we really sure that they're true? And so what I'd like to show you is some research that was done comparing what practitioners say seems to be true and what academics say seems to be true from their research. So let's take a look at that. So on the one axis here, we have the academics rating. And on the other axis, we have the practitioners rating. And so everything in the bottom left is going to be things that academics and practitioners don't think much of. Everything in the Upper left is going to be things that the academics say should be right, but the practitioners aren't really convinced of yet. Everything in the lower right is all the things that practitioners say, yes, that's been my experience, but the academics say, we don't see the proof. And what we're going to do in this short video is just look at the upper right-hand corner. So of the list of things that we saw, what things do practitioners and academics agree you probably do need in your change? Let's take a look. Let's start with one here that is a least favorite of mine, and that is sense of urgency. I find sense of urgency to be sort of a lazy manager's way of trying to get things done, sort of, setting your hair on fire, running around, waving your arms. It's not always that way, but it kind of feels that way. Oh, I don't see a sense of urgency with you. So, what do you want me to do? Sort of have a heart attack, not sleep at night, divorce my wife. What would prove to you that I'm really stressed out about this? I don't like it very much. And even though the academics and the practitioners kind of sort of agree it's on the line, yes, we need to know there's a gap out there. We need to know that we're able to tackle it. Going back to our first video on vision and need, but this one is the sort of the least convincing of all of them that the academics and practitioners seem to agree on. Moving to the right, we see that employees' capabilities and relating the change to performance both come out at the same place. Those seem to be really important. Things that the practitioners say, we see this in sort of real life, and the academics say, we've seen this come back in our research. They also agree that change is difficult and time consuming. So there's no reason to say, oh, well, change, it's all easy. And it's difficult and time consuming. And one of the other things that's actually not in this research, but often people say, well, people don't like change. Well, actually, people don't like pain. Change is not really a big problem. Just look at the people who win the lottery. They're not sort of hiding away, hoping that they didn't win, hoping that this change of bank account won't come over them. It's pain that people don't like, not change. So commitment is also really important. And how do you get people to commit? Well, that's part of being in the guiding coalition, of being leadership and helping people to understand, helping people to set them, get the right mindset. We saw this in need and vision, that people see the gaps and they feel like we can actually get it done. We're able to close the gaps. All of these things start to come together here and help people to commit to what it is we need to change. So moving up, we need a clear vision. We've talked a little bit about that. We also need to have a fair change. This is from some interesting neuroscience work as well, from the Neuro Leadership Foundation. If you Google SCARF, or you just look in the description box here, I'll put a link to all the relevant research that I have found on these things. People not only want to be treated fair, but they want to know that it's fair. In other words, it's not enough just to be fair, but you have to be seen to be fair. This is a really important mindset aspect of change management. Naturally, you need a powerful guiding coalition, and there needs to be enough trust in management to get these things done. And naturally, if you're going into a big change just after you've been acquired, or there's been a merger, or you've gone through some sort of horrible organizational situation where the organization has been traumatized and the belief in leaders is low, that's going to be something that will hurt the chances of your organizational change. And the last couple, supervisory support. These are kind of those frontline managers. I heard once that having the CEO jump up on a table in the cantina and tell them all about the new strategy and the new change and all that kind of stuff is a great way to communicate. And people are looking, and everything gets quiet, and there's the CEO, sort of showing us how it is and showing this is brave new world. But that's not really where the communication is. That's only the start. The real communication starts when all of those people leave the canteen and they go to the coffee machine, and there is standing someone from the guiding coalition or one of these frontline managers, and they say, did you hear what the CEO said? Yeah, what did you think of that? And it's that moment that the communication either works or it doesn't work. It's that moment when the other person says, yeah, well, that's management for you. Oh, or they say, yeah, I like it. I like what I heard. I think we can believe in it. And, I'm optimistic about that thing. Now your communication has really, really had the proper impact in the organization. Finally, goal setting. And everyone agrees. It's one of the highest scoring things. Goal setting, get the goals out there, make sure they're clear and appropriate and specific and all of those things that we know from the SMART acronym. Get goals out there that are aligned with your strategy, but also aligned with your culture. Not only aligned with what you want to do, but how you want to do it. So that's the practical insight for this episode of Pocket Change. I hope you've enjoyed that. And next time we'll get into mapping business dynamics. So for now, that's all from Pocket Change.